Today, we're diving into Deus Ex, specifically human revolution and mankind divided. And I'm not here to talk about gameplay mechanics or whether the boss fights were rubbish. I'm here to talk about what this game actually teaches you. Because Deus Ex isn't just a cyberpunk thriller about conspiracies and augmented humans. It's a masterclass in Illuminati cosmology, transhumanist eschatology, and Gnostic initiation dressed up as entertainment. This is the game that taught a generation what the Illuminati actually believes. That showed millions of players the symbols, the structure, the methodology of elite control. It didn't theorize about conspiracy, it declared conspiracy as documented fact and walked you through it step by step. But here's what nobody talks about. The game that reveals the conspiracy is part of the conspiracy. Deus Ex gives you knowledge, real knowledge about media manipulation, false flags, corporate government fusion, occult symbolism, and then traps you in that knowledge without offering any actual solution. You spend 40 hours fighting the Illuminati on screen while the real Illuminati consolidate power in the real world. You feel informed, awake, enlightened, and you do absolutely nothing with it except boot up the next game. This is controlled revelation. This is sophisticated propaganda. And by the end of this video, you're going to see not just what Deus Ex teaches, but what it does to you while you're learning it. If you want to understand the propaganda, symbols, and hidden messaging in all the biggest Hollywood box office hits, subscribe right now, click like, and hit the notification bell to make sure you never miss a video. 2011's Deus Ex, Human Revolution opens in 2027 Detroit. Ominous shout out to everyone in Detroit. Only one more year and you're living it. You play Adam Jensen, security chief for Sarif Industries, a biotech company pioneering mechanical augmentation technology. On the eve of a congressional hearing that could legalize human augmentation worldwide, Sarif Industries is attacked by augmented mercenaries. Scientists are slaughtered, research is stolen, and you, Adam Jensen, are torn apart, left for dead. 6 months later, you wake up. Your body has been rebuilt with cutting-edge military augmentations. You're stronger, faster, deadlier than any baseline human. You're a cyborg. And as you investigate who attacked Sarif Industries and why, you're pulled into a conspiracy that spans continents, corporations, and centuries. Because it wasn't just corporate espionage. It was orchestrated by a secret society that's been manipulating world events since the Renaissance, the Illuminati. Now here's what makes Deus Ex different from most conspiracy fiction. The game doesn't ask, what if the Illuminati were real? It declares they are real. They do control everything, and here's exactly how they do it. This isn't X-Files ambiguity. This isn't Dan Brown mysticism. This is a systematic breakdown of elite control presented as established fact within the game's world. You meet them. You talk to them, you watch them pull strings. Bob Page, the head of Page Industries and secretly the leader of Majestic 12, a splinter faction of the Illuminati. William Taggart, public face of the Humanity Front, secretly an Illuminati puppet manufacturing opposition to augmentation. David Sarif, your boss, secretly in bed with the Illuminati's tech pipeline. Hugh Darrow, creator of augmentation technology, secretly working toward a transhumanist endgame. Every major player in the game is connected to the conspiracy. Every corporation, every media outlet, every political movement is controlled or infiltrated. The game reveals this methodically, conversation by conversation, data log by data log. You hack computers and find encrypted Illuminati communications. You infiltrate secret meetings and hear them discussing humanity's future like chess pieces on a board. You discover that both sides of every public debate, pro-augmentation and anti-augmentation, are run by the same people. This is actual Illuminati doctrine, by the way. The game isn't making this up. Hegelian dialectic, control both thesis and antithesis, synthesize the outcome you wanted from the beginning. Create the problem, control the reaction, offer the solution. Deus Ex shows you this tactic in action across multiple plot lines. The Humanity Front protests augmentation, while Sarif Industries pushes it, but both are funded by the same shadow network, engineering conflict to justify greater control. And the symbols, they're everywhere. pyramids with all-seeing eyes, Masonic imagery, the number 23, references to Icarus, the Tower of Babel, Prometheus. The original Deus Ex literally has Illuminati characters debating philosophy in the Statue of Liberty while a plague decimates the population. Human Revolution's marketing used the Icarus myth explicitly: fly too close to the sun and you'll burn. Mankind Divided's opening cinematic shows the Org incident as humanity's fall from technological grace. The game is teaching you to recognize these symbols, to see them in the real world, to understand that when elites use this imagery, it's not decoration, it's signaling. It's a language, and once you learn it, you can't unsee it. But here's what's interesting. The game presents the Illuminati not as pure evil, but as the necessary evil maintaining order from the shadows. Bob Page is a villain, yes, but he believes he's saving humanity from chaos. The Illuminati members you meet aren't cartoon bad guys. They're sophisticated, articulate, intelligent. They make reasonable sounding arguments. They present themselves as the adults in the room, making hard choices that the masses couldn't handle knowing about. This is elite self-justification presented as philosophical depth. The game is showing you how the Illuminati sees itself as benevolent shepherds guiding stupid sheep, and it's seductive. You start to think, well, maybe someone does need to be in control. Maybe democracy is too messy. Maybe the masses are too easily manipulated to be trusted with real power. See what just happened? The game revealed the conspiracy and then made you sympathetic to it. The central conflict in Deus Ex isn't just political, it's theological. At its core, the game asks, should humanity transcend its biological limitations through technology? Should we augment ourselves with machines? Should we merge with artificial intelligence? Should we become gods? And the game's answer is complicated, but it leans heavily toward yes, but carefully. Human augmentation in Deus Ex works like this. You replace body parts with mechanical prosthetics that are stronger, faster, and more capable than flesh. Need better aim? Get cybernetic eyes with zoom and thermal vision. Need to be stronger? Get arm pistons that let you punch through walls. Need to survive a fight? Get subdermal armor plating and health regeneration implants. Adam Jensen is the most advanced augmented human ever created. His body is a weapons platform. He can turn invisible, hack computers with his mind, fall from any height without injury, and shrug off gunfire. He's the prototype for what humanity could become if augmentation becomes universal. He's transhuman, more than human, beyond human. And the game makes this feel incredible. You're not playing as weak flesh, you're playing as an unstoppable cyborg. You level up by installing more augmentations. You solve problems by upgrading your body. The entire progression system is built around becoming less biological and more mechanical. The game mechanically trains you to see the body as something to be overcome, to be improved, to be transcended. This is Gnostic transhumanist theology in interactive form. Transhumanism is the belief that humanity must evolve beyond its current biological state through technology, genetic engineering, cybernetics, brain-computer interfaces, eventually uploading consciousness to machines. The body is seen as a limitation, death as a technical problem, and technology as the path to godhood. And notice the name, Adam Jensen. Adam, the first man. You're playing as Adam, the prototype human, the one from whom all humanity descends. This isn't coincidence. Atom Smasher in Cyberpunk 2077, 96% machine, barely human. Adam Jensen in Deus Ex, the most advanced augmented human ever created. The name appears again and again because these stories are retelling the fall. Adam in the garden was offered godhood through disobedience. You shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Adam in these games achieves godhood through technology. When you play as Adam Jensen, you're not just controlling a character, you're inhabiting the archetype, you're taking on the identity of the first man who rebelled. And as Adam, you make choices about whether humanity should transcend its limits, whether to trust the serpent's promise of enlightenment, whether to eat from the tree of technological knowledge. The game is making you replay the fall, but this time The fall is presented as ascension. Adam's choice to augment isn't portrayed as rebellion against God's design. It's portrayed as evolution, as necessity, as becoming what humanity was meant to be. You're Adam, and you're choosing the serpent's offer again, but this time it's framed as heroism. And the game's title, Deus Ex. It's short for Deus Ex Machina, the Latin phrase meaning God from the machine. In classical theatre, it's when a god appears at the end of the play to resolve the plot, usually lowered onto stage by a mechanical crane. It's become a writing term for any contrived solution that appears out of nowhere to fix an impossible situation. But, in this game, the title is declaring the transhumanist endgame. We don't need God to save us, we'll save ourselves through technology. We'll become the Deus Ex Machina of our own story. So, you're playing as Adam, the first human who rebelled in a game called God from the Machine, about humanity achieving godhood through technology. The symbolism isn't subtle. The game is ritualizing the fall and framing it as the path to salvation. You're not just learning transhumanist theology, you're enacting it. You're not just watching Adam become more than human, you're making the choices that transform him. This is why the name matters. This is why the title matters. You're being invited to identify with Adam in his rebellion, to see yourself as the one who can transcend God's design through your own effort to become the God from the machine. And Deus Ex presents this as not only inevitable, but desirable. Yes, there are risks, addiction, rejection, inequality. Yes, there are ethical questions: who gets augmented, who controls the technology, what happens to the unaugmented, but the game never seriously suggests that maybe humans shouldn't play God. It only asks how we should play God responsibly. The key moment that reveals this is Hugh Darrow's broadcast at the end of Human Revolution. Darrow is the genius who invented augmentation technology. He's the father of transhumanism in the game's world. And at the climax, from his base at Pangaea, a massive ocean platform, he triggers a signal that drives every augmented human insane simultaneously. The Aug incident. Millions of people with implants suddenly turn violent, psychotic, uncontrollable. It's global chaos. Augmented people slaughter their families, attack strangers, destroy cities. And then Darrow reveals why he did it. He broadcasts a message to the world explaining that augmentation was always meant to transcend human limits, to create a new species. To overcome the weakness of flesh and the tyranny of mortality, he says humanity reached for godhood, and he triggered the Aug incident to prove humanity wasn't ready, that we flew too close to the sun like Icarus and burned. This is the Tower of Babel, explicitly. The game is retelling Genesis 11 humanity united in a project to reach heaven through their own effort, and God scattering them and confusing their language as judgment, which leave humanity divided into ethnicities, which are nations. But in Deus Ex, Hugh Darrow is the demiurge, or the Gnostics' negative representation of the biblical God as inadequate, corrupt, evil. Darrow is a bitter, crippled man who can't be augmented himself due to a genetic defect, so he destroyed everyone else's chance at transcendence out of envy. The Aug incident functions as divine judgment, but it's a false god declaring false judgment. The game shows you the danger of transhumanism. The Aug incident kills thousands, traumatizes millions, and creates a global apartheid between augmented and natural humans in mankind divided. It shows you that playing God has consequences. But then, it keeps the door open. The game doesn't say augmentation was a mistake. It says augmentation went wrong because bad people controlled it. The problem wasn't the technology, it was who had access, who controlled the kill switch, who profited from the chaos. The solution isn't rejecting transhumanism, it's democratizing it, regulating it, making sure the right people are in charge. This is techno-utopianism, the belief that technology itself is neutral and only its application can be good or evil. That if we just had better systems, better leaders, better safeguards, we could transcend humanity safely. That the problem isn't playing God, it's playing God badly. But from a biblical perspective, this is a lie. The problem is humanity playing God. The issue isn't that we need better technology or wiser augmentation, it's that we're trying to transcend the limits God placed on us. We're rejecting His design for humanity, treating the body as a prison rather than a gift, and pursuing immortality through our own effort rather than through resurrection in Christ. Deus Ex presents two false alternatives: either embrace transhumanism and risk chaos, or reject it and stay limited. The biblical alternative: accept your creatureliness, submit to God's design, and trust His plan for transformation via resurrected glorification never appears. The game's cosmology has no room for a creator who might have opinions about his creation hacking itself. And this matters because millions of players absorb this framework. They learn that the body is just hardware to be upgraded, that death is a technical problem, that the future of humanity is merging with machines. And they learned it while having fun, while feeling powerful, while making meaningful choices in a beautifully crafted world. Entertainment is never neutral. Games teach theology, and Deus Ex teaches Gnostic transhumanism. Right. Now here's where we need to step back and look at what's actually happening while you're playing Deus Ex, because the game doesn't just show you conspiracy, it uses conspiracy mechanics on you. It doesn't just depict manipulation, it manipulates you, and it does this so smoothly that most players never notice. Deus Ex is famous for player choice. Multiple paths through levels. Dialogue options that change outcomes, moral decisions with consequences, and 4 different endings where you literally choose the fate of humanity. The game's marketing emphasized this. It's your story. You decide. This is player agency as a selling point. But let's examine what that agency actually is. You can choose which augmentations to install from a predetermined list the developers created. You can choose which characters to trust from options the writers scripted. You can choose how to complete missions using tools the designers programmed. And at the end, you can choose humanity's future by selecting one of 4 pre-rendered cutscenes. This isn't agency. This is the illusion of agency. You're making choices within a completely deterministic system that someone else built, scripted, and programmed. Every choice you make was anticipated, accounted for, and ultimately meaningless outside the game's fiction. You're not actually fighting the Illuminati, you're pressing buttons on a controller while sitting on your couch. But it feels meaningful, you say. My choices mattered to the story. Did they? Or did the story just branch to one of several pre-written outcomes? You're experiencing narrative reactivity, not actual agency. The game responds to your inputs, but it was always going to respond that way. You're not free, you're following a script with multiple choice options. And this is the meta-commentary Deus Ex is accidentally making. You think you have agency in the game the same way citizens think they have agency in a democracy. You vote, you make choices, you feel like you matter, but the system was rigged from the start. The Illuminati controls both candidates. The corporations own both parties. The outcomes are predetermined regardless of which button you press. Deus Ex shows you this in its story and then does it to you as a player. Think about it. You're playing Deus Ex, learning about corporate control, media manipulation, and elite conspiracy. You feel informed. You feel awake. You understand how the world really works now. You've been red-pilled by a video game. And then what? You finish the game, you put down the controller, and you do what exactly? Do you take any meaningful action in the real world based on this newfound knowledge? Or do you boot up another game? Because here's what actually happens. You spend 40 hours fighting the Illuminati in a video game, you feel like you've done something significant, and then you return to your normal life working for a corporation, buying products from corporations, consuming media made by corporations, scrolling social media owned by corporations. Nothing changed. You just got really good at a simulation of resistance. This is sophisticated pacification. The game gives you the language of conspiracy, the symbols of rebellion, the emotional satisfaction of fighting the system, and exhaust your revolutionary impulse on pixels. You've already dealt with the Illuminati. You beat them in the game. Why would you need to do anything about them in real life? It's psychological inoculation. A small dose of truth prevents the real immune response. You've been exposed to conspiracy, felt the danger, and overcome it in a controlled environment, so when you encounter it in reality, you're desensitized. Yeah, I know about that. I played Deus Ex. And you're not alone. Millions of people played Deus Ex. Millions absorbed its framework. Millions now understand conspiracy. And what have those millions done with that understanding? Mostly argue about it on Reddit and Twitter, post memes, share YouTube videos, make fan theories, consume more content about conspiracy, spiral down the rabbit hole. The game trained you to be a spectator of conspiracy, not a participant in resistance. Now we're going to go somewhere most game analysis won't go, and you might find this uncomfortable, but stay with me because this is where everything starts to make sense. What if the revelation isn't the resistance? What if they want you to know? The Illuminati in Deus Ex operate in plain sight. Their symbols are on buildings, in corporate logos, in news broadcasts. They don't hide, they signal. And the game presents this as arrogance, as hubris, as elite contempt for the masses who can't see what's right in front of them. But what if it's deliberate? What if the occult elite in the real world operate the same way, broadcasting their symbols, hiding in plain sight, practicing what occultists call revelation of the method? This is a documented phenomenon in occult circles. The belief that revealing your workings, showing the masses what you're doing to them, gives the ritual more power. That consent, even unconscious consent through passive observation, binds people into the working. That the best magic happens when the target knows they're being manipulated but feels powerless to stop it. And look at our world. Illuminati symbolism is everywhere. Music videos, corporate logos, government buildings, currency. The elite attend Bohemian Grove, and it's documented. Bilderberg meetings happen annually, and the participants are listed. Davos broadcasts its technocratic agenda live. Epstein's network was exposed, and nothing fundamentally changed. They're not hiding, they're revealing, and most people see it and do nothing. Why? Because knowledge without power is paralyzing. When you know the system is rigged, but you feel helpless to change it, you become demoralized. You either slip into despair, or retreat into escapism, or spiral into endless research that never leads to action. But if we're going to understand what's actually happening, not just in Deus Ex, but in our world, we need a framework that makes sense of conspiracy, and that framework is the Bible. The biblical worldview doesn't deny conspiracy, it explains conspiracy in a way that's more comprehensive and more disturbing than any secular analysis. Turn to Deuteronomy 32, verses 8 and 9. Moses is recounting Israel's history, and he says, "When the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he divided mankind, he fixed the borders of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. But the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob his allotted heritage." The sons of God, the divine beings. This passage, in its original Hebrew, says that when God divided the nations at the Tower of Babel, he appointed spiritual beings, lesser gods, if you will, to rule over them. Every nation except Israel got a territorial god, a principality, a ruling spirit. Now flip to Psalm 82. God is presiding over a divine council, and he says to these gods, "How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? You shall die like men and fall like any prince." These gods are real. They're beings with power over nations, and they're corrupt. They're judged. Fast forward to Daniel 10. Daniel is praying and an angel appears, but the angel is late. Why? Because he was delayed by the Prince of Persia, a spiritual entity with authority over the Persian Empire. Another principality, Michael, had to help him break through. This prince isn't a human ruler. It's a territorial spirit with real power to influence nations. And then Ephesians 6. We do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. The Bible is telling you that human conspiracy exists, yes, but it's downstream of spiritual conspiracy. The Illuminati, the elite networks, the corporate government fusion. These aren't just humans being corrupt, these are humans in league with principalities and powers, with the gods of the nations, with territorial spirits who are assigned authority over the earth after Babel and who rule through human proxy. This is the missing piece that makes sense of everything in Deus Ex. The Illuminati in the game aren't just a human secret society, they're in contact with non-human intelligence. This is why the Illuminati in Deus Ex uses both sides of every conflict. This is why they fund both Democrat and Republican. Both the pro-augmentation movement and the anti-augmentation movement. Because the principalities don't care which side wins, they care that both sides are operating within a framework that excludes God. Whether you choose transhumanism or neo-Luddism, corporatism or socialism, technology or primitivism, as long as you're not choosing submission to Christ, the gods win. The conspiracy is real, but it's not directed by humanity. It's spiritual warfare manifesting through human institutions. And Deus Ex accidentally reveals this, shows you humans coordinating with inhuman intelligence to reshape humanity, and then mislabels it as AI to keep you from recognizing what it actually is. Demonic intelligence masquerading as technological progress. Now here's where the biblical framework offers something Deus Ex never can: hope. Not optimism, not maybe we can fix this, but actual, grounded hope based on God's sovereignty. Because if you stop with the conspiracy is real and the principalities rule the nations, you end up exactly where Deus Ex leaves you: demoralized, paranoid, and trapped. You know the system is rigged. You know inhuman forces are pulling strings, and you have no power to stop it. That's a recipe for despair. But the Bible doesn't stop there. It tells you something Deus Ex never mentions. God is sovereign over the conspiracy. Look at Genesis 50-20. Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery, conspired to destroy him, lied about his death. It was genuine conspiracy, genuine evil, genuine human malice. And Joseph tells them, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive." God didn't cause the conspiracy, but he used it. He sovereignly permitted it for his purposes. The brothers' sin was real, but God's plan was bigger. The crucifixion of Christ was a conspiracy. Rome, the Sanhedrin, the mob, they all conspired to kill Jesus. And not just men, but Satan himself through Judas Iscariot. It was genuine evil, genuine injustice, genuine murder. But God predestined it. He used the conspiracy to accomplish redemption. The worst crime in history became the best thing that ever happened to humanity. This is the biblical view of conspiracy. God permits it, even uses it, while never authoring evil. The principalities scheme, the elite conspire, humans rebel. And God weaves it all into his salvific plan of good for those who love him. This reframes everything. You're not called to defeat the global conspiracy. That's not your job. It's not even possible. Christ already defeated, completely humiliated the principalities at the cross, and will fully manifest that victory when he returns. Your job is faithfulness in your actual sphere of influence. Raise godly children. Build a strong local church. Share the gospel with your neighbors. Work honestly. Love your wife. Pray without ceasing. Submit to authority but resist the specific compromises the system demands of you today. This is actual spiritual warfare, not researching Illuminati symbolism for hours online, not endlessly watching conspiracy videos, not playing video games about fighting secret societies, because here's what the principalities actually fear. Not your knowledge of their schemes, but your submission to Christ. They don't care if you know about Bohemian Grove. They care if you're making disciples. They don't care if you can identify their symbols. They care if you're raising your kids to fear God. They don't care if you understand the New World Order. They care if you're obeying Jesus in your daily life. The real resistance is faithfulness, obedience to King Jesus. This was the Frank Fox being frank about how popular culture, Hollywood, and the entertainment industry invert the truth of Scripture to lead people away from Jesus Christ. If you like this content, please subscribe, click like, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future uploads. And may God bless you in the knowledge of His Son, Jesus Christ.